much better. The Padres. Nice choice.
But yeah, it's laughably bad, but you know.
They'll be playing in a 60-game season, though.
That's it. Absolutely. They can continue being rubbish.
Mm-hmm. They can indeed. Right. There we go. Things coming up. Hopefully we have audio. The Padres. Nice to do. Good. Share. Yeah, right. Jangling coming.
The whole Liam Kumar Day effect, not really happened.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I rang up Mendenhall, he said he could make it.
Don't dig this whole. Phil, credit to the guy, he always manages to do well what he has, but he is a shocking person. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-vim.
No, my life from Rashad Mendenhall.
Right, here we go. I'm a tag, Jack! I'm a fucking tag!
Hello and welcome to another episode of the LOC Report. We are fast approaching the end of our off-season series, the first podcast one we've done ever. We've had a few articled ones before, but the first podcast one we've done ever. But we've got a few more to go, so don't worry. And Chris is, of course, back, as he has been every episode so far this year. How's it going, Chris?
Hello, yeah, so far so good. I mean, it's another lovely day here on the south coast. As a result, if I take my hat off, I end up getting blind.
Yep,
and
you can't see.
You can see my lovely bonnet, which is, you know.
You're telling me you haven't gone to the hairdressers yet, Chris, now that we're allowed to?
I tried. Everyone else has got appointments, so next one I can get that was in any way suitable anyway is next Wednesday. So next Wednesday it is.
Yep. Wow.
So yes.
Yeah, I'm sure you won't have the same difficulty getting a pint from the pub, hopefully, if you wanted to.
That does sound quite nice to one, actually, I have to say.
Yeah.
I haven't tried to get one, I have to say. So I think a lot of people seem to have done that for me, mine.
Yeah, there was some pretty damning photos of London, which I'm sure you saw last night as well. But I have to say, I walked Izzy yesterday, went past the Village Inn, and it looked relatively quiet, and there was people in there, and they all seemed pretty well spaced. So if they're happy to do that, then why not, I suppose.
Well, that's right. You know, so the great thing is at the moment is that it's not burning hot. It's not 40 degrees. You know, it's not even 30. It's not even 25. So there's not as much need. Well, yeah, that's what we like. Bit of crap. Yeah, there's not as much need to want to go out at the moment, I don't think. As nice as it is, but yeah, that's it. Undoubtedly that will change in the next few weeks. Yeah, yes. It's the first Friday night for a while, I think. Yeah, well, obviously coming up this week, and yes, we'll see if it's any different.
We will see indeed. But we will get back to the LOC report, of course. And before we dig into the nominations, Chris, we have some league news for the folks, don't we?
Oh yes, we do. Always.
And as always, if you cannot predict the words I'm about to say by now, you have either not been watching very often or there is something very wrong with you. The draft date is the Saturday, the 29th of August.
29th.
29th.
It's been the 29th for all of these episodes.
It has. Glad I didn't nearly get it wrong there. That's fortunate. As I say, it will be probably an afternoon, evening affair, as the church football team are back now, so you may even have a game that day. Who knows? Yeah.
Wouldn't we love it?
Yeah. So circle that date out. Make sure you are there. Whether possibly physically. Who knows at this point? But certainly virtually, if not. I suppose that brings a question as well. We are, I suppose, rapidly reaching the point where we start to have to make a decision on the divisional lining event. Chris, have you had any further thoughts?
Yes, indeed. Well, I think that the divisional lining event can exist. It can exist as intended. But yes, it's, unless everyone gets locked down again, which I don't think is going to happen here anytime soon anyway, then yes, we'll have to start arranging that. Obviously now it's going to be within the next couple of months before that draft. We can't have it after the draft. I don't think it's going to work very well. So yeah, that's it. I suppose we need to put out there as to what date is possible for people to do it, and in which setting they would prefer. We can obviously do locally down here, which may suit people. We can do something somewhere else. So I don't really mind. I'll tailor something to suit everyone's needs, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. I think being outdoors doing something is the safest way of doing something at the moment. The way we would do this is it's easy to social distance anyway. So yeah. I think we need to maybe put it out there and see where the next few weekends is most likely people want to do it.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have some discussions between Chris and LOC HQ. We'll figure something out in terms of that. But so keep your eyes and ears alerted for that, I guess. And in our general, coronavirus and sport of the world update, obviously we've had the Premier League back for quite a number of weeks now. Were you watching the Newcastle West Ham match, Chris?
That's it. I wasn't. No, I was watching the Grand Prix actually, which is
that's the first Grand Prix.
Yeah,
that's the first Grand Prix since everything came back. So understandable. And West Ham and Newcastle did finish up in, I think, what was probably a fair 2-2 draw. Saw
the end, and to be honest with you,
before the game, if you told me that was the result, I'd have probably said that's a fair reflection of both teams at the moment. But in Americans, the sphere of sport, obviously things over there are still they are still struggling with the first wave as it is. NBA is, I believe, still scheduled to return at the end of this month, as we mentioned last week. I think MLB have started formal practices now, I believe, and they're on course to begin a 60-game reduced season at some point. But in terms of the NFL, there has been some updates there as well. Further 2 more weeks of preseason games have been axed. Players are still scheduled to report at the end of this month, but there will be limits on the amount of players allowed in the facility at once, for example, and there will only be 80-man rosters instead of 90-man rosters, so that kind of hurts some of those undrafted guys. But the NFLPA, I think, they've either advised or said to the NFL that they don't want any preseason games at all. I believe they are contractually on the hook to do a minimum of 2, which is obviously where it's set at now. But given the circumstances, the NFL may also agree that it makes sense to just knock the whole thing on the head and go from week 1. But with that as it may, that does also bring into question, well, is the regular season starting to look a bit under threat?
I think the regular seasons, as time goes on, and with no abating of the virus in the US as a whole, I think that it's a problem. Certain states have more problems than others, but bearing in mind that you've got three teams in Florida, and
that seems to be
and Texas, and that seems to be reasonably badly affected at the moment. Oh, crikey! No, actually, that's much better. Those in the south seem a little bit more worse affected. Obviously, New York was the epicenter of it, but they seem to have done their lockdown, and the effects seem to work there. I think that the NFL have to take the view that the Premier League did here, and have the NFL as a closed bubble, with plenty of testing once every week, to be able to sustain it. I think that fans in the stadium is a no-go. That would be crazy. Obviously, we talked about the financial impact of that over the last couple of weeks, but I cannot see for the life of me how they'd be able to do that safely. And yeah, that's it. They have a massive TV audience anyway, so why would they risk the health and safety of the players? And ultimately, it's the players that matter to be able to make that season.
I suppose the biggest difference between, the Premier League and all the football leagues, I should say, I think have done a really good job of it the way they've done it. I was listening to a podcast the other day. Obviously, Leicester's kind of gone into its own local lockdown, and they were kind of saying, really, the King Power Stadium is probably the safest place to be in Leicester right now, just because of the measures and all the safety and everything the Premier League have put in place. But it's kind of comparing apples to pears, I think, to say the NFL should do a similar model, because while there obviously are practices they can certainly use, there is no getting around that a Premier League team and all of its team personnel is far inferior in number to that of an NFL team. And I think that's where the issue kind of is amplified a bit.
Yeah, but it's also in the same breath of that is that you've got the NFL who's had 6 months beforehand to prepare for what they're going to do. Premier League didn't have that. They didn't have that luxury halfway through the season. So, yes, the numbers are great, but at the same time, the team coaches that they use here to travel around to stadiums, well, that's it. I suppose every NFL team's worth their salt has got a private jet.
I believe, but this is the thing. I think with the football players at the moment, they're all driving themselves personally, I believe.
Well, to practice and back, yeah, sure.
No, I think to the game as well, as I understand it. Yeah.
But I don't get that, because even when you get on the pitch...
I know, you're running around. This is the thing, because they spray down like the goalposts and the corner flags at halftime, and it's like, what's that going to do if you're all...
Exactly. So you may as well, especially if you're, if you're driving each other fine, but when you get on the pitch, that's already a chance to get incubated. So so yeah, I think that's maybe a step that too far, or a step that other sports franchises would look at and take a back seat on. I think the option for the NFL not to run a season isn't on the table. I just cannot fathom that being the case. They couldn't afford to do it. So they will have to find a way. But I think that's what it will be. That's it. It will just be, that's it. The amplified version of the bubble that we have here is that each individual team, or say the NFL as a whole, if you are a member of that, a franchise, a coach, whatever, you'll have to be very careful and be part of that. And if it means locking themselves away throughout the week and only playing on the weekends and not interacting with anyone else except their teammates, then so be it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that is their job at the end of the day. And yeah, that's it. I can't even for a minute thinking owners would want them to do anything different. So they've had their time now to be free, I suppose.
Yeah, I think this is what worries me about it, though, is because from everything I see and every update I see, I really get the sense that, I mean, you would hope there is some sort of planning going on in NFL headquarters, and it's obviously just not seeing the light of day because it's there for when the situation arises, etc. But there hasn't really been anything spoken about of contingency and what if this, then that, and then that, then this. It all seems to be kind of going on the proviso that, things are still going to be almost in a status quo, or by this point it will be this, so we'll be able to do this. That's what really worries me about the NFL. The only thing I've really seen, other than them obviously cancelling these games as and when, is there will be some sort of list players can go on if they do test positive, where I believe they can go on that list for 10 days or something like that, and they need a series of 2 positives to be able to come off the list within that time frame. That's about all I've seen in terms of something proactive, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, they don't have to announce anything yet, because the world could change drastically in the 3 months that they have, or the 2 months that they have now. and it already has. If you look 2 months ago from where we are today, in the past, so there's been an awful lot of change since then. So I guess that's what they're banking on a little bit. But there have been precedents set now elsewhere in the world, and with more games. Let's be honest, Premier League has more games than the NFL does, or has to. They have to have that done between now and September anyway. That's it. So it's either that, or they take the view that they have in UEFA, where they've said, right, well, we're going to have a tournament and have a closed facility, and we'll do that in one place.
NBA's model, more or less. Yeah.
And it could be that and it could be that there's 4 venues, and then a quarter of the teams go to each venue, and they do that over the course of the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Which, would that be a massive problem? Well, if you weren't playing in your own stadium, and you were doing it based simply on geography, if all the divisions came together in it might be more problematic for those such as NFC East, for example. That's a bit different. But there are certain instances where you could play all your games in 2 stadiums, 3 stadiums in any given week. So I don't know. There's a lot to contend with.
Yeah.
But I do think that playing in front of fans at this stage,
it's a pipe dream.
Probably won't happen. Yes. As soon as people get their head around that, then
the better.
Then that might make things a little bit easier to plan.
Yeah. That we spoke about it last week. The plan where each team is going to be allowed to decide how many fans, if they have fans at all. I think it's ridiculous. I think that's going to
great.
You just away quickly. So there it is. That is your coronavirus and sport update, and that was a bumper one, Chris. So I think I'm going to drop the order drop here, the debate corner drop. Here we go.
Order.
There you go. Hope you enjoyed that one, people. Yeah. Right, now what we are actually here to talk about today is another Hall of Fame nomination, and this time is Ollie Gardner, and I believe he nominated last year. I can't remember what he nominated last year. I know he nominated Ezekiel Elliott as his first overall draft pick at one stage. I can't remember if there's anything else. No, today is actually something a bit more interesting. And when I gave you the sneak preview of this last week, you were actually quite intrigued. It is the Kicking Carousel is the nomination, a new kicker and a new team name nearly every week of the 2019 season. So that is the preface, and changing team name has become, I suppose, quite a new trend in the LOC. Certainly with Ross retiring and coming back, he's kind of kicked it off where he kind of did it for a season, and I suppose you could even point to Phil's season as Tanky McTankface, or in another way the season that you had to have James Milner as your logo. There have been some dabblings in changing of team names and logos and things like that, but more recently we've seen Ross obviously update his team name on a weekly basis based on music and movies in the last couple of years, and Coach Gardner as well, he has opted to really name his team after his kicker of the season, but he decided to take that to the next level last season, as we saw, and he did this based on kickers. Not just that, Chris. Kickers that he actually played, which is one thing, but to actually go and do that is another thing entirely, wouldn't you say?
I totally agree. And they're not like crazily bad kickers either. So they're all of a reasonable standard, which, to be honest, is even more impressive, because to pick these guys up week in, week out, it's either a little bit I don't know. You're ducking and diving a little bit, aren't you, to try and get these guys. And maybe it's a little bit fortunate that they're available, but he's made good of what he has, and he's made something funny out of it, and something's a bit of a USP for his team. So So yeah, that's it. We'll go through some names then, and there's a few interesting.
Yeah, we'll go through the names and we'll go through the season as well, because I suppose that is intertwined. It's fair to bring in your performance to this as well as the actual name itself. So yeah, like I said, nearly every week of the season, all in all, there were 12 kicker names that I could uncover from last season. And he didn't make playoffs, so that was nearly a full slate. So in not in week one, but in order of the team names. So we had Vinatieri, you and you one was Adam Vinatieri, of course. Prater, God I Do Better, Matt Prater. The Book of Elliot for Jake Elliott. Game On for Matt Gay. The Stone Rosas for Aldrich Rosas. A lot of points this week was also Jake Elliott, so points for doing two with the same player. Hausch Can Kick a Ball, Stephen Hauschka. The Wizard of Boz was one of my personal favourites, Chris Boswell, that was a good one. Folk Hugh, also funny, Nick Folk. Fairbairn Dance, Kaimi Fairbairn. I Know I Don't Play Badgley, Mike Badgley. And of course, you had to finish with this one, You Are Gold, Robbie Gold, which
classic.
Cash for Gold was obviously the original name of them as well. So 12 team names there. Some of them pretty good, some of them a bit ropier, but I would say, in fairness to him, all of them work. Would you agree, Chris?
There are a few that are shoehorned in there a bit, but I get what he's trying to do. But it takes a level of creativity to come to any of these names anyway, which most of us don't have, especially those who've kept the same name like you and I have for God knows how long.
Since the founding days, yes.
Indeed. So yes, I think that if there are points for creativity, you definitely give them a lot.
Yeah, and you spoke about it a few minutes ago that both things have to come together to make this a really great nomination, which I think it does, in the sense that, like you say, you have to be creative and be able to get these names, but you also actually have to pick, to actually play these guys for them to be your team name. You actually have to not only be able to think of a name for that player, but get that player, and then to change it each week, pick the right kicker. It's quite the ordeal.
Position you can really do it for that wouldn't massively affect your score. I think that the elite kickers are okay. So all right, they get the double-digit points every week, but below that, it's a real. I don't know. It's a bit of a turkey shoot really as to who gets what, and if there's going to be something fun to be done with a team, I think your kicker is a safe bet to be able to do that. So yeah, it's clever. And I don't think it massively affects his season either. So yeah, it's something else that brings a bit of fun to the league. Yeah,
absolutely. And you speak about a season, and as I said a while ago, did not make playoffs, and he actually had a career worst 5-9 record last season. But as you rightly say, kickers can win you a week, but you'd be hard pressed to say a kicker is part of the reason you lost a week. I think, and so we'll bring the performance side of this into it. If we just go here, so 5-9 record for your Gold last year. An okay amount of points. It wasn't the league worst, not by far actually. Probably around mid-table, and he did have quite a few scored against him, as you see there. In fact, he may have been the highest scored. He was the highest scored against team last year. Only team to have 1,400 or more points scored against him. So that obviously has played a part into the record as well. But if we go week by week now, and we can just take a look at how these kickers did while they were on the team. I don't believe the team updates for each week. No, it doesn't. But we'll see the kick. So week 1, kicker got 4 points. Wouldn't have made a difference anyway had they done amazing. What we got in week 2, 1 point. So not a great start, but again he got the win in week 2, so doesn't matter too much. Week 3, 15 points from the kicker. It did pay off in week 3.
Averaging out there, that's absolutely.
With Matt Gay game on that week, he would have won it without him, but it helps all the same. Week 4, he got 6 points. That's nothing to sniff at for a kicker. It's probably a relatively run of the mill. He lost that one as well, but again, the kicker wouldn't have made a difference. So hello. Week 5, 7 points, and again, does not make a difference in the result of the game. probably going to continue this trend as we go on. Week 6, 5 points again, no effect on the result. Week 7, 11 points from the kicker, which was hilariously nearly a quarter of his points that week. In a dreadful 48-point week for Coach Gardner, and eminently winnable game as well, wouldn't you say, Chris?
I'd say so. That if you lose someone who's scoring 67, then you're letting them off the hook a little bit, really. Aren't
Yeah. Well, Hausch can kick a ball did that for sure in week 7 of last season. Week 8. What did we get in week 8? Was 9 points, and that was did contribute to the win. Again, without it, he still would have won, but it would have been tight. So Mike Nugent, he must have had a name. I don't think he could remember at the time, so maybe there would have been one more name. Week 9, here we go. 10 points from the kicker, there you go. Doesn't change the result, but he does get the win.
What this tells you is that whatever kicker you get in the draft, just don't stick with it. Just, move around your kickers.
Yeah, unless you can get an elite one, you can just do this. Week 10 here, 5 points, Chris Boswell. The mighty Boz doesn't change the result, but it does help in the victory there. It would have been close. Week 11, 1 point, not so good, but it wouldn't have changed the result again, going back to Chris Boswell there. Week 12, again, doesn't change the result, 7 points from Nick Folk you, of course. No offence intended, Chris.
I said no.
8 points in week 13 from Mike Badgley. And finally in week 14, there's of course R Gould, I think. With 12 points, to finish it up again would not change the result. So, like we said, you know what? I'd say he probably did on balance pretty well with the kickers. There's the odd low score, but that happens to all of us. It is what it is. But I'd say on the whole, with the name and the skill of choosing a decent kicker most of the time as well, the two met nicely there, and it forms a good nomination, Chris. But would you like to tell the viewers? Well, what's your opinion? How Hall of Fame worthy is this? How does it stack up?
It ticks some boxes for me, and as I keep banging on about every single week. This isn't just something that someone's fond of, that it's a memory or something. This is something that over a course of a few weeks, this is one, creative, 2, it brings quite a fun element to streaming stuff, which you should be doing anyway if you're not comfortable with the ST or your kicker or whoever, really. Sometimes your QB can do that. And it is a way of making things more fun. So I think that's a big tick in the box. It's a body of work over a number of weeks, which is again a big tick in the box for me, being Hall of Fame worthy. And is it something that someone would do again? Well, I know that he's done it for a couple of years in various forms. I know Ross does it as well in various forms. But so absolutely right. For me, I think this is definitely up there with some of the more fun elements of Dave's nomination that we had 4 or 5 weeks ago now. But say it's whether or not that you want something that's fun and makes you laugh, and this definitely does. Or you want something like Ben's, where it's obvious that it's something that's Hall of Fame worthy because of it's over a number of years and the excellence is prolonged over that time. So I think that's something you've got to consider. But for me, yes, this goes above those that are just a single memory. Because there's, instead of just one thing, there are 12, and that's it. The season wasn't anything to shout about, but perhaps the names were. So that's it. I'm going to put my hat in the ring. I'm not going to disregard it. I'm not going to say don't vote for it, because that would be disingenuous, and that would be wrong. But that's it. But still, for me, I think that there is from a competition standpoint anyway, still a number one choice. But really, that's not for me to tell you. That's for you to make a decision for yourself.
No,
we'll see what happens with this one. I'll be interested to see how many votes you get.
And don't forget, you will have 3 levels of votes to use. You'll have a 3-point, 2-point, and a 1-point vote. So you'll get to vote for 3 nominations, but obviously only the one with the most points will be inducted. And you mentioned Ross is there as well, because Ross, his are very funny. We enjoy them very much, and the logos to go with them are usually very good, tastefully done as well. But where Ross has it easy is he literally does have the pick of any player in the league. He doesn't tie it to his team or anything. And quite often, well, I wouldn't say often, occasionally he will use some very obscure player that even challenges my knowledge of the NFL. Whereas, for what Ollie Gardner has done, like you say, to actually pick one of these guys and use them in their team and come up with a pretty good name there as well is not easy, and I think he's done quite a good job. The only way I think you could say you could probably top this, and who knows, we may even see this in an upcoming season, is if you did it with the skill position. You've got 15 guys on your roster, or 13 guys now, I should say. So instantly you can use any one of those to begin with. But then when you pick up guys as you go along, if you could do it like that, and even then extend it to streaming a guy each week at a skill position, even if it's quarterback or whatever, I think that's the only way you can improve upon this, really.
Yeah, I like to see a QB streamer do this, because that's brave over 12 weeks. And a different one every week as well. Can't just be like,
nice, yeah.
You just stream for 5 guys and do it in rotation. That's not the way this works. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be bold. But I'd say it's bold enough anyway to play that sort of game with your roster. So fair play to it.
For sure. That is the end of this episode of the off-season series then. I meant to say earlier, but I will say before the end, apologies to Mike for last week's show. I did try to do the podcast on another setup, and it did seem to work fairly well-ish for half an hour, and then for some reason the encoding, just the processor gave up the ghost and it stopped. So apologies for that, but you can go and read the article, of course, which I will also put in the comments, as I always forget to do that, of this video and then the post. We will be back next week. I'm not going to tie it to Wednesday at this point, because we're both working now, scheduling issues and whatnot. Me and Chris have both felt a bit ropey on occasional Wednesdays over the last couple of weeks, so there will be a pod next week at some point, so just keep your eyes peeled for that. Other than that, all I have to say is, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, have a good week ahead. Let's hope Liverpool could actually beat Aston Villa, because at the moment this is appalling.
Yeah, making hard work of this, aren't they?
Yeah, it certainly looks like it, yeah. But other than that, take care to you, Chris. I hope you have a good week as well, mate.
Take it easy.
Catch you later. And here is the outro music. Now, bubble on all you want, Chris. Chris can't hear this though, so, he's just faking it, but you wouldn't know, would you?
I know what it sounds like. I've heard it so many times.